Welcome to today's Missionary. We are reflecting on Matthew chapter 10. We've been going through verses 21, 22, 23. This is verse 24, 25, which is underlined in blue, which is the leadership principles of Christ. Not part of the series, but I don't want to read on into the instructions. And actually, these are part of the instructions of being sent out. Jesus is giving the disciples instructions on how they're going to take this message. A student is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for the student to be like his teacher and the servant his master. If the head of the house has been called Beelzebub, how much more the members of his household? To be a disciple is to be a learner. To follow Christ in that sense. Sometimes they called him Rabbi. Sometimes they called him teacher, because in those days, if a religious figure came along from some certain sect of the Jewish religion, and you wanted to learn about that particular branch of Judaism, you became a disciple of your Rabbi, your teacher. And you left a lot of your earthly responsibilities to go do that. So when Jesus is calling the disciples along, there's that sense there that they are following him to learn, as though someone who wanted to be a Pharisee or a Sadducee would search for those teachers that they wanted to be under, so that they themselves could become Pharisees or Sadducees. But he's telling them, you're not ever going to become the teacher. A student is not above his teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for the student to be like his teacher and the servant like his master. And these are part of the instructions to be sent. And basically, the disciples are to go with a message and go through the towns and the villages, but not pretend to be now the teachers and the leaders, because they are the ones out there doing the work. He's telling them the harvest is plentiful and the workers are few. Pray for the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest field. Come here. I'm going to give you the authority to do this work now. And this is what's going to happen. And this is how it's going to be to go through the towns and the villages. And you're not above the teacher. It's enough for you to be like teacher. We have to slow down and reflect on these things, taking them in context to what Jesus is doing here. We're looking at all of chapter 9 and 10 and this particular scene where Jesus is telling his disciples how it's going to be, and this is right in the middle of it. And don't forget, if the head of the household has been called Beelzebub, how much more the members of his household? And just previously, he said, all men will hate you because of me. And people are going to die over this. I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. If you're going to even be like me, they're going to call you this. Verse 26. So do not be afraid of them. Jesus is telling his disciples how to be. He's not making a light comment. Don't be afraid of them. He's giving them an instruction. So do not be afraid of them. Just previous, all men will hate you because of me. Not because of you, not because of anything you've done. The authority is from me, the message is about me, and they're going to hate you because of me. And they're going to call you Beelzebub because they've done that to me. It's enough for you to be like me. So don't be afraid of them. I wouldn't know where to begin to think about how many people have not actually gone and done cross-cultural, if you want to use the word pioneer, missionary work, you can. It's a little ostentatious, in my opinion, because when you get out into the rural towns and the dust and the mud and the sickness and the resistance and the lack of this and the lack of that, you quickly will be alleviated of any grandiose ideas about mission work, because that's what it is. Mission work. This is hard work where you sweat and you suffer and your hands hurt, okay, and your feet. Not only that, the people are resistant to it, the ones who are not coming around to the message, the ones who don't get it. And you'll go through towns and villages where they slam the doors and they shut the windows. You might go through an entire town or villages where all the doors and windows are shut before you even get there, and no one is opening their doors and windows to you. So shake the dust off your feet and go on to the next place. If persecution arises against you, flee. If people are coming at you to kill you, flee. They hate you because of him. These are all the messages surrounding this. So don't be afraid of them. How is it that we are not afraid of them? I once heard that courage is the ability to go do what you need to do in spite of your fear. And if you ask anybody that has done this kind of mission work, they will tell you, of course they're afraid. But they knew they had to go do it, and they overcame their fear. What does that mean? I come up to the edge of a cliff, and there's the river way down there below, and I don't want to jump off, but I know that I have to get into the river to get to the other side. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to jump. If I need to get to the other side of the river, I'm going to have to jump. And so, in spite of our fear, we go do what we need to do. And that is the way that we are able to do the mission work. And if we are really just to the point where we're not going to jump in and we're not going to go, we pray to God to give us the courage. It's that simple. Because when you get down to what is the real need in the world of taking the gospel, it's where it has not been taken yet. The reason that it's not been taken there yet is because people were either afraid or they justified it or some other reason they came up with to not do it. And Jesus is not giving us an option here. As a matter of fact, we are morally obligated to take this message to our fellow human beings who have not heard it. Everything else is not finishing the Great Commission. It's helping, it's doing something, but it's not going to finish the Great Commission. It's not going to bring an end. So we're going to have to get over this fear of them and this fear of all of that. There's probably a lot of young men out there who need to be out into the towns and villages where the gospel hasn't been preached. No matter what the country's laws say, and no matter how resistant the people are, the gospel has to be taken. If you shake the dust off your feet, it will be worse for them than for Sodom and Gomorrah, where the angels rained down sulfur until those cities burned. That's how serious it is. That's how serious it is for them if they reject the one coming with the message and the one coming with true healing and true deliverance. And so somewhere we are going to have to find it within Him, not within ourselves. Because if I'm the courageous one and I'm the brave one, then at the end of the day, wow, brother, we can't imagine doing what you do. Well, the glory is coming to me. It's not coming to him. Well, it's simple. The instruction is, don't be afraid of them. No matter what I feel, no matter what I'm thinking, don't be afraid of them. There were times on these trips that I have done into these towns and villages where the people were coming to kill us. And at the moment that those things happen, God gives us the grace. That's the best way to explain it. I had the blessing to be able to read the Bible in the mornings with a former missionary to Japan who was sent to Japan after World War II to bring in the gospel. And he was sent as a military chaplain, and they chose 4 different denominations of chaplains to go into Japan. And the Japanese had cut the heads off of all the Christians down by the ocean. So they were afraid. And he was telling me this, that all 4 of the chaplains that had to move to Japan with their families were all afraid. But they went and they did it. Now, they learned by going that God protected him in the end. Does it take away my fear on the next time I have to go do something? No. Doesn't. Every time I have to go do a trip into the towns and the villages where no one has ever gone, it's there. I could look back in the past and say, well, God has protected me over and over and over and over again, and my faith has grown. Well, after so many trips, there's still that anxiousness, nervousness, fear in some cases. Well, I need to remember the instruction of Christ. Don't be afraid of them. It's work that someone has to go do, and I just can't be afraid to the point of not getting it done. There's the difference. If a little boy doesn't want to get into sports because he's afraid he's going to get hurt and he just doesn't go in, well, then he doesn't get to participate and play in the sport. But this is the commands of Christ. These are the instructions we're being given to go. And so for us, this is today's missionary. This isn't today's Christian. The channel is called Today's Missionary. This is for missionaries. You're going to have to go. Okay, you're going to be afraid. It's okay. But you're still going to have to go and get it done. So just know that Jesus is telling you, don't be afraid of them. Not in an arrogant or in a proud or an aggressive way. Like if you were about to fight somebody, you're a little boy and the boys are getting into a fight, and the bigger boy is coming at you and you stand up to him with a face of defiance. Not like that. That's not the kind of don't be afraid of them. Because then we are, in a sense, finding it within ourselves. Not found within ourselves. It's found within Christ. And you never know, that may be the point where you pay the price with your life. And my dear brother, who was a missionary in Japan, said, if you ever come to the point where they're about to kill you, don't worry, God's going to give you the grace to stand up, to stand firm, to not deny Him, and to let them do it. Just like Stephen in the book of Acts. Just like Jesus on the cross. The rest of verse 26 says, there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. It's going to take a while to reflect. It's going to take time. If you're new to reading your Gospels, this is going to take time to try to get the clarity from God. Why would this be within the instructions? But we'll take that up in the next video. Take care. God bless.